In the darkest depths of medieval Europe, when illness swept through cities like a tidal wave of death, one figure emerged as both savior and nightmare: the plague doctor. Draped in long black robes, leather gloves, and a terrifying bird-like mask, this strange physician became the embodiment of fear, mystery, and hope. It was filled with herbs like lavender, mint, or camphor, believed to protect the doctor from miasma or poisoned air. They thought the very air was killing people. In truth, the bubonic plague was carried by fleas and rats, but medieval science hadn't caught up yet. Surgeons, barbers, and even butchers took on the job. Often they did more harm than good. Bloodletting, boiling vinegar, and lancing buboes were just a few of the terrifying cures they practiced. The iconic beak-shaped mask wasn't just for show. In the heat of summer, they couldn't remove their gear, not even to eat or drink. The same horror, the same masks, the same silence. One account describes a plague doctor who began speaking to the dead, convinced he could hear the souls crying out from under the floorboards. And each time, new doctors donned the suit, stepped into the abyss, and hoped they wouldn't be next. They were like walking tomb-strapped in armor, designed by desperation. Imagine living in a town where half the population vanishes in a matter of weeks. Others used it to point to instructions or tap on windows, avoiding all speech for fear their breath could carry the disease. Corpses litter the streets. Priests refuse last rites. Entire families die within days. They were like grim accountants of the apocalypse, keeping track of a dying world. And in their eyes, the mask wasn't scary, it was hope. The doctors were no exception. They were feared long after the sickness was gone. And into this hell walks the plague doctor, his masked face appearing through thick fog, clutching a wooden staff used to examine patients without touching them. Some believed that plague doctors were agents of death themselves, which is demons or harbingers of the apocalypse. Victims of a broken medical system, of superstition, of fear. And yet, they walked straight into the jaws of death when others fled. That kind of bravery, however misguided, is unforgettable. They risked their lives to document deaths, care for the sick, and attempt hopeless treatments. The eerie beaked mask is now a symbol of plague, death, and mystery in horror culture. But back then, in the candlelit shadows of 1347, was only the masked figure in the fog, scribbling names into a leather-bound book as the world around him collapsed. You've seen it in Halloween costumes, video games, and haunted houses. But behind the mask was a real person, a sweating and utterly alone. Many died alone, their bodies dumped into mass graves like the patients they served. Their arrival often signaled that death was already at the door. Many of these doctors weren't even trained in medicine. Cities hired anyone willing to face the plague. And the horror didn't stop at the medical tent, but the truth was more tragic. Plague doctors were usually the last line of defense. One of the most chilling facts: some doctors were sealed inside their suits, leather stitched shut, masks locked in place. And what happened when the Black Death struck again? Wasn't just once. Europe was hit over and over again for centuries. There are real stories recorded of doctors who went mad, trapped inside their own suits, hallucinating from heat and fear. The wooden staff they carried? It wasn't just to examine patients. Some used it to ward off desperate, infected crowds. And then there was the paperwork. Yes, paperwork. Plague doctors were often required to keep death records, documenting names, symptoms, and burial instructions. Their homes, when they returned to them if they survived, were often burned to the ground. Possessions incinerated. Families shunned. Survivors of the plague were treated like lepers. It's easy to think of plague doctors as medieval monsters, but they were also victims. Their legacy remains. Today, we know how the plague spread. We have antibiotics and vaccines. The next time you see that beaked mask, remember, it was worn not by monsters, but by desperate men facing an invisible killer.